Yeah, Jim, we'll bring you up. That's cool.
Turn that music down. How's it going?
I'm good, Jim. How are you doing?
Good.
Right
You
on.
see, you see what's up on the screen right here?
I do. Scheduled hearings for January. Yeah. Tell us about it, brother.
No, you're right there. The one I got arrowed out.
Yep. Liepert versus United States.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's my brother.
Okay. And what's
United
going on with
States
him?
Air Force, 19 years, 8 months, 20-year career, highly decorated soldier, multiple tours. Now sits in Leavenworth for something he didn't do, with constitutional error by our United States military. All the way through, the Supreme Court just denied it.
They denied the cert.
Yep, that's what that is right there.
Okay.
What can we do about this?
So guys, this jurisdictional argument that I have, it applies to both federal and state courts. All right. You know, again, like I was explaining last week or earlier this week, you know, what the issue is do states have the right to oversee the disposition of a dispute in which the state itself is a party? No, because they got a conflict of interest. You know, that's why the laws were to be made by the central government. That's what a federal government is. The laws are made centrally by a representative government, and then they're federated out to each of the regional governments for application administration. And you see what happens here is that when the accuser is the state, right, and they bring an accusation through any one of their agents, it doesn't matter who it is, whether it's CPS, whether it's a law enforcement, whether it's a judge, whether it's, you know, it doesn't matter. But if an agent of the state brings an accusation against you, then the same body of men can't be the judge against you, right? That judge has a conflict of interest. He represents the very same body bringing the accusation as the ones judging. And that's why he has to recuse himself. That's why Article 3 says, in all cases in which a state shall be party, the Supreme Court has original jurisdiction. See, there's a federal judiciary and there's a state judiciary. So if the state brings the charges, if they bring the accusation, the federal judiciary is responsible for overseeing that dispute. That's what the Constitution says. But if the federal government brings the accusation, then the state is the judge, right? And we can presume that they're neutral and biased because these are different governments. It's not the same government seeking the enslavement that would be overseeing the disposition of dispute. So the same thing applies for your brother, right? That judge was the judge advocate general. Now, there are some issues with the military code of, or the Uniform Military Code of Conduct that I don't necessarily agree with because they don't have the same due process. I mean, you know, if you are subject to the UCMJ, but not the Constitution, because they're taking you through a court martial, it's the same thing. Like that judge works for the Air Force or works for the military, and it's the military that's seeking the enslavement of the individual. So, nonetheless, it all boils down to conflict of interest, you guys. And that's what James Madison was getting at in the Federalist number 10 when he said that no man is allowed to be judged in his own cause because his interest would no doubt bias his judgment. His interest would no doubt bias. That is the earliest known reference to the modern day concept of conflict of interest. James Madison was trying to explain what conflict of interest was in that particular writing. It hadn't come to, you know, to be what it is we understand today. He was trying to formulate this understanding that, you know, if a person is judging the very case that the same body of men are accusing, there can't be justice, there can't be neutrality, there can't be an unbiased nature. But the problem is, you guys, is that we have to deal with this from the top down, because today we believe that the Supreme Court of the United States is a court of discretion. We believe they can pick and choose what case they want to hear or not hear. We believe that because we've forgotten about the original jurisdiction, been led astray. But if the Constitution establishes the obligation for the Supreme Court to oversee a case in which the state is a party, and that's never been changed, you guys, Article 3 has never been amended. Now, if that's true, then that's an obligation, and obligations cannot be disregarded. You can't use your discretion to break the law, because that would be an abuse of discretion. So at the end of the day, what's happening is that is that the states do not have authority to be able to oversee its own dispute. And the Constitution has created the obligation for the judges here in the states to recuse themselves. And again, like everything is in our favor right now. They're all in our favor. You have the judicial code, the judicial recusal code. One second, guys. So, all right, guys. So, the judicial code, recusal code, the automatic judicial recusal code, is Title 28, subsection 455. And what's important to note about that is, first off, if you're in a federal case, that code absolutely 100% applies to your judges. 100%. There's no denying that. Now, there is argument about the fact that state judges, they don't think that they have to obey the federal judicial code because they say, oh, we're state. But remember, the Constitution's Supremacy Clause says that this Constitution and the laws of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land. So the states do have to obey the laws of the United States, and that judicial code would apply to them, although that's the argument we're getting. But my point is that on the federal side, it absolutely 100% applies to them. Now, what the federal judicial code 455 says, it says that a judge has an automatic, mandatory, self-executing, non-waivable duty to recuse themselves if they are an officer by the party. Right? Mandatory, self-executing, non-waivable duty to recuse if they are an officer by the party. These are judicial officers of the United States, and when the United States is a party, they have to recuse. And that's because the only judge that can actually oversee it would be a state judge. So all the federal judges will all have to recuse automatically. Now, according to Hill versus Weeks, that's Hill versus Weeks, Weeks, Hill versus Weeks, that when a judge acts or takes action in a case in which they have an automatic recusal, they're warring against the Constitution and committing the crime of treason. So, and they're doing it in open court as required by the Constitution. So they don't have the authority to oversee the case when they have that automatic recusal, when they are an officer by the party. And you guys don't even have to tell them to recuse. They're supposed to do it on their own. But if they take any action in the case which they have an automatic recusal, then whatever that court does is going to be void because they're acting out of jurisdiction. According to Civil Rule 60, anytime a court acts out of jurisdiction, what it produces is nothing at all. It's non-binding. The parties involved in dispute. It's void.
Well, now with his particular case here, he's sitting in USDB Leavenworth. Okay, yeah. Because that's military,
right?
And they literally, in his case going up towards the Supreme Court, state in black and white in his thing there's constitutional errors. And the Supreme Court didn't, 99.9% of the time doesn't even take military cases because of the UCMJ. And the UCMJ has literally put a good soldier that defended our country in prison on their code.
Okay.
So they gave him 21 years on hearsay for SA. When we have 100,000% proof that he didn't do it. And they would not let it into the courts. And that Supreme Court that she sent up, Samantha sent up, was with Madison, I believe.
Was with what?
The Madison versus U.S. She was explaining that in Matthew's case here. Okay. So what would be our next step?
Brother, we have to finish at the top first. Because the reason why the judges out at the state level are breaking laws because the highest court of the land is permitting them to, is leading them in that direction. There's, especially if the Supreme Court has denied the cert, there's not much we can do left. We can challenge the jurisdiction, but that's what we're doing anyway. And we have to do that from the top because the obligation exists for the Supreme Court to do it. So we have to get the Supreme Court to acknowledge their obligation or breach it either way. But if they breach it, what they do is they create a public wronging, and that's a different ballgame. But we want to point out the existence of the obligation, and we want them to acknowledge it, accept it. Now the right exists. You all have the right to bring your case to the Supreme Court because the Constitution has established a duty to be able to do it. But we have to establish a right before we will have action. So, there's not going to be any change by a lower level judge if the higher judges, if the planetary judges are not obeying the law. Then all of the agents that work for them are also not going to obey the law because they're being taught to go in an unlawful direction. So we've got to go from the top down. I mean, that's how it has to work. And I was talking earlier about something that Alexander the Great said. So Alexander the Great said that an army of lions and bears led by a sheep will be defeated by an army of sheep led by a lion. So listen, man, all of these judges and prosecutors, they're lions and bears. They're tough. They're a whole army of them. They got guns, they got weapons, they got the badges, they got everything, and they will annihilate us because they're a massive army of lions and bears. But you know what? The only reason why they exist is to protect the Supreme Court, who's nothing but a criminal, a sheep. You see, all of these courts were created to obstruct and to protect that sheep because they've done nothing but commit crimes since the day they were set, right? They're nothing but a bunch of criminals. And the fact that they won't acknowledge the criminality of their institution makes them even more of a criminal, right? But nonetheless, that's what they are. They're criminals. Now, we may be an army of sheep. We're weak, we're defenseless, and so on. But if we stick together, then they can't take us down. Because the way that a lion hunts is the lion's going to hunt and jump in the middle of that herd of sheep. And he's going to get them off on their own, defending themselves. And this is what these prosecutors do to you every day. They jump in the middle and they bring up conflict, and you guys go and you argue with them about whatever it is that they want. And you guys continue to do it. Everybody's talking about their own individual issue. One person's talking about evidence procedures. The other one's talking about biased judges. The other one's talking about lies and prosecutors. But nonetheless, you guys are off fighting by yourself. And that's where the lions take you down. If you're out by yourself, defending yourself, it's going to take you down every single time. And that's what happens to you. But if we stick together in a herd, the lions can't take us down. And that's why I keep saying that, if we can come up with the one procedural situation that affects everyone, the moment that you're arrested, because you're all arrested every one of you were arrested unconstitutionally. If we talk about that arrest, we're a herd, we're together. They can't take us down. There's a time and a place. There's a time and a place to tell your story. The time isn't now. The place is when you're seeking injunctive relief. Right now, we got to accuse them of a crime. Because in order for you guys to get your relief, we have to get them down on a crime. So that's why we got to point at their crime, and we got to say, that's the point we look at. If we stop talking about the other things, that's going to be important when it comes time for you guys to seek injunctive relief and get paid for the damages that they caused. But the first things first is we got to come to a point where we're together as a herd and we're moving forward together on one single issue, and we're all talking about it. So we might be an army of sheep. We don't have guns, we don't have badges, we don't have titles. But you know what? If we're led by the leadership of a sheep, if that Constitution of the United States is what it says it is, then our law can take down their inferior state laws all day long. And all it has to fight is the lion leading us take down their sheep, and they're done. The whole army loses its power. Without leadership, no army has power. Now the flip side is that how does the lion hunt? Well, he jumps in the middle of the herd. And that's what I'm trying to do, you guys. I know that Supreme Court is nothing but a criminal. And I know that criminal is being protected by these armies of lions and bears. These prosecutors, judges, they're protecting it. So that's what I'm out here doing, you guys. I'm out here jumping in the middle of this herd of lions and bears because I want to draw that sheep away. All I got to do is jump in the middle of them and get that sheep off on its own, defending itself, and we're going to take that Supreme Court down. It's not going to stand a chance because it's the criminal, but we have to draw it away from the army of lions and bears. We got to get in the middle. We got to cause chaos, and that's what I'm doing. So today, guys, I serve the state of Tennessee. 38 states now enjoying. Okay. And we're in Kentucky right now. I'm in Frankfurt, and we're getting ready to serve tomorrow. We'll get Kentucky and West Virginia. You see, we got to keep moving, right? Every time I sit and because I'm woe me because I don't have a car or whatever, man. we lose a lot of time. We lose a lot of momentum. And I spent way too much time in Oklahoma trying to get out of there. And I'm glad that I'm out. I'm glad that we're moving again because power is the product of action. We're not going to get anything unless we're out here moving, unless we're doing something. That's the only way that we're going to have any action. So we served in another state, Tennessee, and been joined. We served on behalf of the Saxon family and the White family. And 38 states now joined. Tomorrow we're going to have a 3940. And then over the weekend, we're going to drive up to Maine. We're going to get Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont early next week. So between Monday, Tuesday next week, we'll get them done. That's going to finish all the lower 48 except for North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, Nevada, and Maryland. Everything else has been served. Everything other than the Hawaii and Mexico, but all the lower 48 will have been served. We'll have 4 states left. Guys, I don't trust what's going on with the administration. You guys want to point it at it. You guys want to point at that DOJ memo. You guys want to be all excited about it. You guys better be careful about that. You better be very cautious because our government creates diversions. I've been telling you this for years, right? I mean, that's what I did when I was with them. We create diversions. We get you looking over here, but it's a looky-loo. Wherever the government wants you to look is not the direction you want to look. And so I've been concerned about it for a couple of reasons. One is that when Mr. Trump comes into office, he says he's going to put the Constitution foundation, and I hope he does. But his actions have to align with his words. And what he said is, I'm going to put the Constitution back at his foundation, but he's also going to sign an executive order expanding the private prison contract with Geo Group and Core Civic. That's going the wrong direction. That's not going the direction of hey, we're going to have the Constitution back at the foundation, because if you put the Constitution at the foundation, you're going to have to address 2.9 million people that are currently incarcerated unconstitutionally because that Constitution has declared that they were to be free and that they were to have certain rights, privileges, and immunities that would be given to them that was not given to them. And so we're going the wrong direction if we're planning on putting the Constitution back to the foundation. Wrong direction. But he also said that he signed another executive order that is opening up the green light for the federal execution to come back on after the moratorium. And again, that's also going the wrong direction because we know that there's an inordinate amount of people that are innocent in prison. We know it. Statistically, we know it. I mean, numbers-wise, we know it. 139 of the 1,500 people that were put to death here in America, 139 were proven to have been innocent after they're murdered. That's 7%. Do we want to continue down that path? I don't think so. But if we understood the dynamics of the system and what's going on, if he had knowledge, or at least if he accepted it as credible, then we would be acting differently. Now, that said, they talked in that judicial memo, they talked about how all the state laws are unconstitutional, how all the judges are acting unconstitutional. Guys, that's what I've been talking about for years here. That's what I went and served all these judges and prosecutors. They're doing what I say happened. Nobody was talking about state laws being unconstitutional until I said every law that's not constitutional is unconstitutional. States aren't supposed to have laws because all laws were made by the central government. That was the argument that I had from the very beginning. And so I can say that they're listening because they're saying it's true. But the problem is that if you believe that those judges are unconstitutional, that they're not valid judges, then why are the prosecutors still there working with those judges today? Why was it work as normal today in the courthouses all across the country, prosecuting people by information and prosecuting people by without lawful authority after arresting them? That's inconsistent. If your words say that judge is not a judge, then what the fuck are you still doing working with him? The prosecutors work for Mr. Trump. They're part of the executive branch. If you believe that those judges are unconstitutional, you can't let your people go and work with them because that would produce an unconstitutional outcome. So I want to see the actions and words align, and I don't see them yet. I don't see that. So we're going to keep moving forward under the presumption that we're getting to him. He's hearing us, but we need to get him a little bit further along because he's not taking action consistent with the words, right? If you think that those judges are unconstitutional, then your prosecutors should not be there working with those unconstitutional judges, because otherwise they themselves are acting unconstitutionally. And we know that they are anyway, because the charging instrument is supposed to come from the prosecutor. And we know that they've been bringing incorrect charging instrument. So instead of just pointing your finger and saying, hey, you guys are unconstitutional, we kind of need to address both sides. But, I don't mind the fight. But what I'm saying is that on July 4th this year, this was a couple of days before I was on my back on the interstate after having my forks cut on the motorcycle and getting into an accident. On the 4th of July, or the Friday before, there was the Trump immunity case. Now, the week before the Trump immunity case, on June 28th, the Supreme Court came out, and they basically said, judicial branch, you do not get to make the law. If you're not clear on what the law says, if it's ambiguous to you, you must go to the branch of government that has lawful constituted authority to be able to amend the law. You can't do it by your policy and then go out and enforce that. That's what the court said in Chevron, essentially.
And but doesn't Congress write those laws too?
No, Congress has the authority to legislative authority. We did delegate legislative authority to Congress, but we did not to the judicial branch. We did not to the executive branch. They don't have the delegated authority to be able to legislate, because all legislative power is vested in Congress of the United States, consisting of the Senate and House of Representatives.
That's why they get the power over to the UCMJ to rewrite their laws then. Because it's the congressmen and women that are able to rewrite those laws.
The UCMJ is different, brother. And I have some concerns about the UCMJ because they don't have the same protections within there. Like, they don't have a jury trial. You have captain's mass. And so, you can go to the break for captain's mass and you don't get a jury. You don't get counsel. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you don't get as a result of the UCMJ. And I don't think that that's right. I think that even if you are part of the military, you should still be afforded all of the privileges and protections of the United States Constitution. Why are you going to lose those protections? It doesn't make sense, because that person is still a citizen, but they've entered into a contract, changing their legal rights with the government, and now they're subject to the UCMJ and not the Constitution. But yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened, and we got due process broken all over the place on this particular case, and then we got very unconstitutional errors and Brady violations and everything else with this case, and it's just like, oh my God, it made it all the way to the Supreme Court and they denied it.
Yeah. So the 4th of July, we had Chevron, June 28th. The court said, judicial or executive branch, you don't get to do whatever you want. You don't get to amend the law. That was what they said. And then the very next week is the Trump immunity ruling. And what they said there was, executive officer, you can do whatever you want. Guys, those two rulings are in direct opposition with one another within 1 week. It doesn't make sense. You guys got to question that. Why is it that the court says, executive branch, you do not get to do whatever you want, and the very next week, executive officer, you get to do whatever you want? This is what had me concerned, and why I left D.C. heading south for that 4th of July weekend, because I knew that there was something weird going on, because it was the wrong ruling, and I knew that something would be in place, that there would be an agreement. And I'm not saying that this is what it is, but this is my concern, and I just want you guys to know about it, because this is what I'm concerned about. Those two rulings are in opposition with one another. There's no denying that. The executive officer cannot be immune, right? Because everyone is subject to the crimes that they commit. Everyone. But nonetheless, the court came out and just in an insane ruling said, yes, executive officer, you are immune. You can do what you want. You're not subject to the criminal conduct. The problem is that with what's going on with this DOJ, and remember, words and actions after the line. He says that they're unconstitutional, and yet he continues with business as normal today. Words and actions aren't aligning. So what I believe is happening here is that if you guys believe what they're feeding you, the diversion that they're giving you, they're trying to make you believe that those judges work for the executive branch. And you know what? Maybe they do. But the problem is that when you walked into that courtroom, you believed that that was a judge acting under full authority of the judicial branch. And guys, if I walk up to you out on the street with a water gun and I point that water gun and I say to you, if you don't give me your money, I will shoot you. If you think that that water gun is real, it's real as far as law is concerned. I will go to prison because that is a real gun that you interpreted as such. If I walk in this courtroom and that's an ALJ that works for the executive branch, but he portrays himself as a judicial officer, he's a judge, you guys. That's what he is. He's a judge all day long, because it's up to me to decide what he was when he portrayed himself as something that he was not. Nonetheless, if we allow them to give us this diversion and look to these ALJs as part of the executive branch, then they could go there, and as a result of Trump having immunity now, he can grant immunity onto those agents. And guess what? Once immunity is given, the actions of these judges or alleged judges would be valid, right? They would validate this. Guys, they're trying to find a way out of what we got going on. They're trying to find a way out because it's that big of a deal. They're going to find whatever way they can, and I think that that's where they're going with this. Guys, we don't want to look in the diversion. And if you do get excited about it, then you have to temper that excitement with reality of the actions. Actions aren't aligned right now. And anytime words and actions are aligned, you're a liar. So we need to be very, very careful on what we do, what we accept and what we acknowledge, and what we believe.
Absolutely. Like my brother's case right here, it's actually a matter of national security. Yeah. Because just taking someone's word and saying it happened, and they're locking them away for 21 years on hearsay, and they're end up getting paid on the backside too, because there's a lot of benefits they get out of the military for those accusations being made. It's actually a matter of national security, because my brother's case involves an Australian.
Okay.
So it's international too. So, before you sign the dotted line to serve our country, please know the UCMJ before you sign the dotted line. Until that UCMJ is rewritten, your lives don't mean anything.
Yeah. What branch were you in, brother?
I was Marine Corps, but my brother right here is United States Air Force.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what we can do until we have the win at the top. But once we have the win at the top, then we'll be able to provide relief down to everybody below, and we'll send it through a case. Here, guys, this is what you need. File your motion to vacate to the court. They rendered the decision, and they'll have no choice but to vacate the judgment. Yeah. And as crazy and as impossible as it might seem, because that's what everybody says right now. They're like, oh my God, this is so big, it's huge, it'll never happen, they'll never let it happen. You guys, people have judgments overturned every single day under constitutional grounds. And those grounds are oftentimes far less valid than this one. This is enumerated in the Bill of Rights. It's right there in your face, and yet they didn't do it, right? And so it really doesn't matter whether it's one case or 100,000 cases. It still is a constitutional obligation, and it still is a constitutional breach. These convictions are not valid. There's nothing that government can do to make them valid because they didn't follow the rules. There's nothing. If you have an unconstitutional act at the beginning, it can never, ever, ever produce a constitutional outcome. So we need to remember that the numbers are where we're going to have the power. As we're sitting here with one, even if this is a slam dunk, you can't lose constitutional violation. If it's just me bringing it up, that court will ignore me all day long. I need a lot more people talking about that same issue, and that's going to propel us up in that court and force them to have to hear it. And if they hear it, they're going to side with it. They're going to side with it because, once again, if they don't, they will have ceded their power. They will have given up the power that they have to the lower courts. The state courts will become more powerful than the planetary court. And if that's the case, they don't have a job. They won't have power. They won't have an institution, because by their failure to defend Article 3 and the supremacy of Article 3, and thus requiring all the lower judges to obey their ethics, they will have ceded their power. And we know that they don't want to do that. So They will side with it, but we have to get them to hear it.
Yeah.
That's where we're
Yeah.
yeah.
And right now, it's like I'm trying to get all ears on deck here because I mean this is so fresh. This is so fresh. This literally just happened. I just took the screenshot of it today, so it happened 4 days ago. My brother's getting a call from a lawyer tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I told him before. He called me today and he goes, "Hey, I got a call from us." A phone call coming in from Samantha because they always in prison they gotta get exception to get those phone calls, and he said, "Can you check for me real quick?" And I was like, "Yeah, it was denied. It was denied."
Yeah.
So he's like, "I don't even think I'm gonna take the phone call." I was like, "I think you should just to see where she stands. Is she with it? She ain't with it." I was like, "Because right now this is huge." I was like, what just happened with your case literally is Pandora's box into the military. I was like, your particular case is 100% Pandora's box into the military to change the UCMJ. Yeah, but we got to get people to listen. We got to get people to get all on the same page. Got to get them all herded together. Like, I've been listening to you, and I listen to you during the day while I'm working and whatnot, and everything you've been doing. I applaud you for that.
I've had a good teacher. I've had a good teacher. All glory to him.
Yeah.
Like I say. But
yeah, no, you're doing a good job. Keep up the good work too, man.
I appreciate that. I mean, I've had a number of good meetings, and it's an honor to do this, you guys. I mean, and I want these public officials to know that it's not a privilege. It's not a right to be a servant to the people. It's not a right to be. It's a privilege, man. It's an honor. So serving your country and serving your fellow man, I don't think there's anything better than that. And so as much as this sucks most of the time, when you guys appreciate the things I'm doing, that makes it all the worthwhile. So I appreciate you saying that, and we're gonna get it done. I mean, we're way too far along to stop anything now. So you guys, the rest of this week is gonna be pretty busy. Well, into next week. So we've got 4 more sites, 4 more states to serve. And once we get that done, then again, we have another step. And the next step is that, and we're not really passing this around. We are going to do the local services, right? We're not past that. So we're still going to do the local county level services. And so we're going to get that information to everybody, and everybody who wants to be involved, you're going to get out there and you're going to serve your county, your chief judge within the county, and your district attorney within the county. But we need to get the lower level service done as well. So I've got all the high level service done, and now we need to go down and do the lower level. But we need to get you the information because it has to be the exact same information. We're creating a procedural situation that is the same for every single place, every single petitioner. And so there won't be any denying whatsoever the fact that this is a class action event, right? Class action device. And so there's that. But then the other thing that we're planning on doing is we've got a state right now where we have 500 people in prison that were charged by felony information. And we're going to take those, and I've got the habeas, the same habeas that I did for Washington State, and I'm replacing a particular provision of that state's constitution in the place of Washington, and we're done. The habeas is done. So we're going to be going to this state next, and we're going to be filing 500 cases, habeas cases on behalf of these prisoners, right? Because anybody can file a habeas on behalf of someone that they believe is being held in violation of their rights. I've already got the permission. We already know that their felony information got it directly off of their jacket. And all I have to do now is just simply print the documents and pay the filing fee. It's $5 per person to file. So just so you guys know, we need the money still. We got to figure out some way to do it. But we have enough money right now to get us up into Maine and perhaps even back down. So if you guys are up in that way, up in the Northeast, if you guys want to get together, let us know. Give me a call, send me a message, whatever, and we'll be coming up that way. So We should be passing through New Jersey, New York on late Saturday, something like that, and then we're gonna go into Massachusetts and spend a night in Mass, and then probably into Maine on Monday morning, and then come across the top, and then we got to blast all the way back across the country to do this particular state and bring in those cases. Now I'm hoping that 500 will be enough. I don't know. I mean, that's presuming that I have enough money to pay for it. But if I call up the news and I say, okay, we've got 500 cases that we're filing, 500 cases, will you come and do a press conference? I don't know if that's enough, but we're gonna see, because that's the whole point. Is we got to get the news to come out, listen to us. So that's it. We get the news, listen to us, and talking to us, then we'll win. We'll overcome it. It'll be over. Just like Dr. King knew that segregation was wrong. He knew why segregation was wrong, but he knew most importantly that if he could just get the country talking about the issue, that would be all that would be necessary to overcome the issue. That's all we got to do, guys. We just got to get the country talking about this issue, because the country's not going to be all right with the judiciary changing our laws, removing the one thing that exists to protect the innocent from hasty or malicious charges, and then they go and say, oh, well, yes, we know a whole bunch of people are innocent and suffering, but that's acceptable because our system isn't perfect. They're not going to be all right with that. Think about this, you guys. The purpose of the grand jury, is to protect the innocent from hasty or malicious charges by an overzealous prosecutor. Right? To protect the innocent from hasty or malicious charges, overzealous prosecutor. And yet you have the grand jury proceeding that's there to protect him from the prosecutor, and yet the prosecutor is denying him the right to be present so that they can present whatever hearsay evidence they want. Are you fucking serious? Are you serious? Did you just hear what I said? The fucking prosecutor is preventing him, the accused, from being present to confront the hearsay evidence that's being submitted by the overzealous prosecutor. Come on, man. You know, that proceeding is there for his protection from the prosecutor, and yet we permit the prosecutor to deny him the right to be present in the fucking proceeding that's there to protect him from the prosecutor? Man, you guys, I mean, when we think about the true dynamics of it, it just doesn't even make sense. It's insane. Here we go.
Well, I appreciate your time, man. It's about midnight for me. I'm about to get off. I gotta go to bed.
Yeah, I gotta go to bed too. I just want to say goodnight, everybody, and I want to let you guys know that that we're back out here on the road. We served Tennessee. It's been served. We have Saxon family and the White family, and tomorrow we're gonna get a couple more served, and we're gonna keep pushing forward. It's not going to be business as normal because we're going to make sure that whatever they're doing, if there is deception in it, we're not going to stop. I don't see that DOJ memo as being a win at all. So if you guys can, please comment, please like, share, please donate if you can. You can donate off of the website www.tanawah.com, or you can go directly to our Cash App. Remember, you guys, the only Cash App that I have is We Shall Be Free. There's no other Cash App. If you get a message from some asshole that looks like he's me with my logo, it's probably not me if they're asking for a donation. I don't do that. All right, so don't just give out money to anybody. Please, I would prefer that you guys go to the website. If you want the money to go to the tour, you want it to be a part of backing what we're doing, then you guys, we got to be careful, because there's now 2 different plants out there. There's one person doing Tanawah Downing 1, and now there's another one doing Tanawah Downing 2. Apparently Tanawah Downing 1 was making enough money that the other one decided he was going to get involved too. So Cash App won't do nothing about it. Facebook won't do nothing about it. TikTok won't do nothing about it. So we just have to live with it, okay?
Sounds good, man. You have a good night.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. God bless. Have a great rest of your night.
God bless.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Facebook. We'll talk to you later. Thanks, TikTok. Appreciate it, guys. God bless. Thank you, YouTube. Appreciate it. God bless, guys.